we know that SEO can be really intimidating. It can be really technical. And so we just want to strip it down to the things that as a business owner, you can actually do and actually accomplish from, from an SEO perspective.
My business is just me, so I need a marketing plan that I actually have time to do.
I never studied marketing, but I know I have to do it. Sometimes I just need help knowing where to begin.
I never know if the money I spend on marketing is really paying off.
Welcome to Jottful's Marketing Made Easy. I'm Dawn Verbrugge, Jottful's CEO, two-time entrepreneur, former business school professor, and the one with the marketing experience.
And I'm Natalie Bruno, Dawn's partner in crime, certified people person, and the one who speaks with small business owners every day about their website and marketing challenges.
We're here to have practical and fun conversations with people who know a thing or two or three about how to get more customers for your business. So, Natalie, is it just me, or while we were watching that intro video, did you lean over and take a sip from a martini? Did that just happen?
I wish it was a martini.
Are you just having orange juice in a martini glass?
It is apple juice and some water to stay hydrated. Note for next time, martinis are allowed.
Yeah, awesome. So today we have Vanessa on the call, and she's going to be talking to us about SEO, or search engine optimization. Somehow SEO is the one acronym that everybody knows, but it basically just means optimizing your website so that you can show up prominently in search results on search engines like Google and Bing and so forth. And I'm so glad that we're having this conversation, because I think we were talking about it before, Natalie, but at Jottful, we do a lot of domain registrations on behalf of our customers. And so oftentimes our general email address is also the general address for the domain registration, which means we get bombarded. I mean, there's not a day that goes by that I don't get an email from somebody trying to sell one of our customers SEO services, and they're emailing Jottful because they don't realize that we're not the same thing. Mm-hmm. And it's always things like, here are the 10 things that you are doing wrong on your website. And, there'll be this list of 10 things. And I know, because we built their website, that none of those are true. And that, of course, none of these people have ever actually been to any of these websites to do a proper analysis. They're just kind of throwing out these emails and hoping one of them catches someone who's willing to listen. Right. So right. I'm just so excited that we have somebody here today to talk with us about SEO. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And, I think it's probably the number one question that I get from customers, people networking, anywhere you go. It's such a common term now that almost everyone knows SEO, like the acronym itself, which is pretty unusual for an acronym in the digital marketing world. Mm-hmm. But very few people really understand what it does, how to tell what's good from what's not, what's doable yourself versus doable to having to have it done by somebody else. What is really meaningful. It is so hard to tell, and there are so many questions. So I am super excited that we have Vanessa here today. And actually, one thing I don't know that we'll talk about in her bio is that Vanessa has probably helped 8 or 9 of our customers already with their SEO. And so it's been a real joy to work with her and to sort of see how it works, and she can break it down in a really simple way, which is exactly what we're hoping she'll do today.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's why we call this particular talk Practical SEO for Business Owners, because we know that SEO can be really intimidating. It can be really technical. And so we just want to strip it down to the things that as a business owner, you can actually do and actually accomplish from an SEO perspective. So Natalie, do you want to sort of read Vanessa's bio and bring her in?
Yeah, absolutely. So Vanessa Salvia, in addition to being a member of our Jottful community, is a versatile writer with years of hands-on experience as a journalist, content creator, and marketing strategist. She began learning about SEO 15 years ago while working with a website development agency that specialized in providing services to small businesses. A few years ago, she started her own writing, editing, and business marketing company called Sage Media and Marketing. In addition, Vanessa has also been an editor and writer for a variety of print and online publications for years. Now she uses her skills to help small businesses and organizations convey their messages in a clear and compelling way. The SEO work that she does is an important piece of that because the concepts of SEO work hand in hand with marketing and content creation. When you optimize the content you have and create new content, you can improve your organic search visibility, your website rankings, and your traffic. So welcome, Vanessa. We're so excited to have this conversation with you.
Hey, everyone. Thank you. I'm happy to be here today.
Great. We're thrilled to have you here today. This is a really hot topic, Vanessa.
Yeah.
And I thought, maybe the first place we could start would be just to talk about what it is that search engines are trying to do, right? Search engines don't exist to help promote our businesses. They exist for another reason. They have a different user, a different customer. So can you talk about what it is that search engines are trying to accomplish? Because I think that really helps, sort of set the stage for what we need to do to appear prominently on them.
Yes, I think a lot of times it's confusing for people who don't understand how search engines actually work. SEO has been around a long time, since the earliest days of the internet, but the basics haven't changed very much, which is that the search engines are trying to find content that is relevant to the things that people are searching for. Mm-hmm. That's their basic job. Their job is, and another thing is they're just computer programs. Some people call them bots, some people call them spiders. They're just computer programs that go out on the internet and search the websites and then find results that are based on what people are searching for and show those people. The text on the page and the code of the site is key to that because that's all the computer programs can see. And so when you're talking about showing up in an organic search, that means that the search engines have found your content particularly relevant to that search, and they're showing it because of relevancy, not because of a paid advertising campaign or a paid placement or anything else like that. And that's the goal. That's what you want to be found for.
Mm-hmm. How, as a business owner, do we find keywords that we should optimize for and put into our content? And is that something that we can do ourselves or should do ourselves, or is that something that we need to hire out?
Well, that's a good question. There are lots of ways that you can find keywords. And yes, it is something that you can do yourself. I recommend that you...
Vanessa, can you take a minute and explain what a keyword is? I think that might be helpful for people too.
That is helpful. So every business has keywords that are particularly related to that industry, whatever that is. If you're a coffee roaster, your keywords are going to be related to coffee. They're going to be related to roasting, flavor, that kind of thing. And when people are searching for coffee, you want to include keywords in your site that relate to how people talk about, think about, and look for coffee, right? So the keywords are keywords and phrases that people use to find whatever your product or industry is, your product or service, whatever industry you're in. The keywords are how people find you. Mm-hmm. So when you're trying to find these keywords for your own site, I recommend that everyone set up Google Analytics or Google Search Console, because those track the keywords that people actually use when they land on your site. And that's really important because it gives you the keywords that people actually use, but sometimes people in industries don't talk the same way that people that aren't in that industry talk. So exactly. You're tracking the keywords that people are actually using, and that can be really important. Mm-hmm. Another way is just simple brainstorming. Write down all of the ways that you think people might find your business, and then search for those terms yourself and see what comes up. Check and see what your competition is doing and what they call themselves and what they have on the page. And another way is just to enter in a search term in Google and use the predictive text that comes up. Sometimes that can be a helpful way to find related words. And when you search for a word on Google, you scroll all the way down to the page, there's a field that says searches related to this keyword, and you can mine those. You can really go down the rabbit hole with those and find lots of keywords. And people in the industry call that long tail, because they're not the immediate primary keyword that you searched for, but they're related in some way, and those can be really important too. Overall, the what you're looking for is a combination of high search volume, so it's a word that a lot of people search for, and low competition, so a word that not a lot of other people are trying to rank for. So sometimes it's hard to find that balance between high search and low competition, but a lot of those long tail keywords can give you that. And that's ultimately what you're going for. And it's kind of a juggle, to find those words. You can use a lot of paid or free tools that specifically mine for keywords. They can be really expensive. So it's not always recommended for a small business, but sometimes they have free trials, or they might have a light version that's free, and then you can use those tools and get a lot of information. You can use a few tools and kind of put all the information together. That is definitely something you can do yourself. It takes a little bit of time, but it's not hard. If you really don't have the time or don't know where to start, you can hire somebody, of course.
Vanessa, if you're hiring a content writer, is the content writer going to be able to do some of that keyword analysis for you?
That depends on who you hire. Some SEO copywriters will do the keyword research for you, and some won't. Some will expect you to hand them a list of keywords and say, this is the keywords you've already found and this is what you want. It kind of just depends on what services the SEO copywriter provides. But if you are trying to figure out where to spend your money, sometimes hiring the SEO copywriter is the best way if you're going to hire someone, because they will know how and where to use the keywords to the best effect, and they will know how to work them into your site in a way that sounds really natural. So hire someone to do the keyword research, do it for you, do it yourself, put it all together, and you might get the best results if you hire someone who knows how to use those keywords.
Right.
One of the questions that people ask a lot if they are looking for their own keywords is how many? Should I have 5? Should I have 15? How do I decide which of these, do you have a recommended number of keywords?
There is no minimal or maximal number. I think people can get a really good sense of how people are searching for their business by finding a lot of keywords, but it's not going to always be practical to use all of those keywords in one site, especially if it's a small site. So really the ideal is to have one keyword on each page of the site with some supportive keywords worked in also. So the main idea, and then supportive keywords in the text, and then each page is set up for its own keyword, and however many pages that ends up being is what it ends up being.
But Vanessa, let's talk about what you mean when you say set up for its own keyword, right?
Yeah.
So keyword, of course, is very often a phrase as opposed to a word. So it's a bit of a misnomer, right? It's not an individual word. It's usually a phrase. And as you mentioned, it's great policy to choose one phrase or keyword for each page. So to be the focus keyword on that particular page. But once you choose what the focus keyword is going to be for a page, how do you set that up, right? Where does it go on that page? What do you want to do? Do you want to stuff it in as much as possible? I'm setting you up for that question.
Stuffing is not what you want to do.
No, it's not.
Don't do that. And if someone tells you to do that, run away. That is not recommended at all. In the early days of SEO, that is something that people did, but they were quickly penalized for that. Yeah. So it is not good to do today. So going back to the idea of search engines as computer programs, they can't see pictures. So all they can do is read text. So one of the key ways to use keywords is in the alt tags or alt descriptions of your photos, your images that are on your site. And we can talk more about that later, because that's a little more off the page in the code back end kind of a thing that the users to your site don't see. You want to use them in the page title and in headings. And this is sometimes confusing to people, but think back to your days when you were in school, like when you were writing an essay. Your teacher probably told you to write out an outline of your essay or your report before you started writing it. And those headings are like the headings that search engines use to tell what the page is about. So it's really good to put a primary keyword in those headings. And as you go down the page in your imaginary report, each point had its own heading, and the less important points were subheads. And those are called H2s, H3s, H4s. As the number gets higher, slightly less important on the structure of the page. But that's what the search engines use to tell it what the page is about. So that's the main place where those keywords need to go. And then let's say you have a heading and then you have a paragraph of text underneath it. You want to sprinkle in those keywords in that paragraph, but just a couple. And you want to use them in the meta description, which is a piece of code that tells the search engines what the site is about. That's another off the page thing. And one of the most important places to use a keyword is in the page title. And that's confusing to people with that because it's sometimes hard to see. It's different depending on what browser you're using. People don't always know where to find it, but that's a field. It's usually in the back end of the site, and it's something you can change. So if you have access to that, you can change it yourself. And that's a great place for a keyword to go.
Yeah. So if you're using something like Google Chrome, for example, the page title is the thing that shows up in the tab.
Yeah, it's usually a little tab. And sometimes you can't see the whole thing unless you hover over it.
And when you're searching, like let's say you're searching in Google, the result that comes up, what you see in the result, the first line, the headline is really that page title that you just defined.
That is a page title.
And then below that is that description, sometimes called the meta description. So that's why you want to bake those keywords in there because they actually show up in the search result. Yeah. So you're returning back to the audience, hey, this is something that's really relevant to you.
Yes, precisely. And that's a key point is that it's ideal to use the same keyword, both in that page title and in that meta description. Because if all of those pieces are working together on your site, if the search engine says, hey, this page title is this keyword and this heading is this keyword and it's in this meta description too, and it's in this picture description too, this page must really be about this. So I'm going to think that this page is really relevant to what this person is looking for, and I'm going to show this page.
Super helpful.
Yeah.
So at Jottful, one of the things that we talk about with our customers or we get questioned about is blogging and how it can help your SEO. So can you talk a little bit about that? And is the blogging a good thing for your SEO and why?
Blogging is still a really good thing for SEO. And I think one of the things that I try to explain to people is if you have a small website, you might only have 3 product pages, but you could have 100 blog pages. It could be unlimited number of blog pages. And each blog could technically be considered a different page on your website. It provides a lot of opportunities just for you to build your own credibility in your industry and build your authority in your industry. But it also provides opportunities to link back to your products and makes it easier for people to find your products. It provides opportunities for backlinks from other sites, which helps build your SEO. If other people share or link to your blog post, that's great for you. So blogging is an excellent opportunity to build relevant content and use keywords, which are things that search engines always love.
So far, everything we've talked about has really been what's called on-page SEO, which is basically ways that you can use keywords in your content on your website. But there are really 2 other things you can do from an SEO perspective. One is technical and one is off page. So I'll talk quickly about the technical stuff because that's a little bit more Jottfully, right? And then I'll leave it to you to talk about the off page stuff, Vanessa.
Okay.
On the technical side, there are really three things that come to mind that are really critical. One is that your website needs to be mobile friendly. So as we are all increasingly using our mobile devices to search the web, as you might imagine, search engines want to prioritize websites that actually show up well on mobile because they don't want people using their search engine to not get a good result, right? So you want to make sure that your website is mobile friendly. If you hire somebody to build your website for you, if they're worth their cost, then they absolutely should be making it mobile friendly. If you're building your own website using do-it-yourself software, most of them are mobile friendly, but I would check first because some of them will require you to redo the mobile version a bit, and having used some of that software before, I can tell you I would forget all the time, and then the mobile version would look like crap. If you're using Jottful, it's mobile friendly out of the box. So that's the first thing. It needs to be mobile friendly. The second thing is it needs to load quickly. Again, especially important for mobile devices who are, just frequently drawing from the network. People will leave if your website doesn't load quickly. So the search engines will prioritize websites with fast page load speeds. And again, if you're hiring somebody to build the website for you, just make sure that they're taking that into their account and that they have a plan for it. If you're using do-it-yourself software, it should be okay, but a lot of it's going to depend on how you're putting the images in. So the software itself will be fine, but are you using the right size of images? Are you saving them the right way? Are you using the right file format in order to reduce that page load speed? And then if you're using Jottful, of course, we're building it for you. So we're going to make sure that the page loads really fast for you. The third thing is what's called schema. And this is maybe a little bit newer and certainly a little bit more technical, but basically all the search engines got together and said, hey, there's a bunch of things in search results that are consistent across websites, such as what is the street address? What is the phone number? What are the hours of operation? These kinds of really basic bits of information. Let's find a way to tag all of those. So when our spiders are out there crawling the sites, they can say, oh, yep, that series of numbers, that's the phone number. And so just so that they can know what that content is. So again, if you're hiring somebody to build a website for you, they might not know how to add those schema tags. So you either want to ask them or you want to hire an SEO professional who can work with them and help them. If you're doing it yourself, you're going to have to hire somebody who can help you with that unless you do a bunch of research and learn how to do those tags yourself. And if you're using Jottful, most of that is out of the box. So I want to throw that out there. Those are really the three technical things. And I know that, for most of the people on the call, they're not going to be able to do those things, but I wanted to make you aware of them so that if you're working with somebody outside, you can make sure that you're asking the right questions.
Mm-hmm. Those
so
are good points. Yeah.
Yes. So Vanessa, we talked about on page, we talked about technical. Let's talk about off page. Like, what does that mean? And what is it that we as business owners could be doing off our website to get better results in search engines?
Okay, well, the on the page stuff is the words on the page. That's basically what the visitors see when they come to your site. The off the page stuff can mean the code of the site, which is like the alt text and meta descriptions that we talked about. But it also can mean stuff like, is your site in Google My Business? If you have a location, make sure you put your business on that so it shows up in a map search if people are looking for a location. Keep it updated, keep your hours updated because people really do rely on those information. Social media also gets returned as search results now too. So, go ahead and set up the Facebook profile, the Twitter profile, the Pinterest profile, and the YouTube profile because searchers use those tools to find things all the time. And so even if it's not something that you're actively constantly updating, it's still important that you have a presence on those.
And what about backlink building? Can you talk a little bit about what that means?
Yeah. So one of the things that search engines use to determine a page's authority or relevance is if other sites link to it. So if you can get links to your site from manufacturers, partners, vendors, other blogs, that kind of thing, like maybe you're guest blogging on another site and then in your bio it says, Maria can be found at mariasmallbatchcoffeeroasters.com, then that links to your site and that just shows Google that other people think your site is important. And that's something that's really good to do if you can. It's hard, but it also pays off.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of legwork involved in doing that backlink building, but there are some directories that you could get published on that will get you that backlink. I think one of the things to pay attention here is domain authority, right? So it's not enough to get a lot of backlinks. You want backlinks from quality websites, right? So the New York Times linking to you is far more valuable to your website than, I don't know, my sister's blog. Yes, right?
That's definitely true. Unless your sister's blog has a really high page authority.
I totally made that up. My sister doesn't even have a blog.
Those are all important points. There used to be just emails going out all the time from agencies that said, we'll get you 5,000 links if you pay us. But those links were from low quality sites. They were from brand new sites. They were from sites that weren't even related to your topic. And it didn't do anybody any good. In fact, there were a lot of penalties for that. So I think there's still some agencies floating around out there that will promise to do that. It's never a good idea.
Oh yeah, trust me. They email me. We'll get you on the first page of Google.
Never a good idea.
No.
You know, it's worth a time investment to reach out to some other people that are authorities in your industry and try to do some trading. Write a blog for them. Ask them to write a blog for you. Speaking of blogging, one of the things I didn't mention, people sometimes don't like blogging, right? Because it's hard to come up with ideas. The blogs get neglected. But another thing you can easily do is update your content, your project portfolio. For instance, case studies, project portfolios. Those are all easy ways to keep your site updated that aren't blogs. So that's important. We can talk about that more too if you want to. But that just shows how important blogging is, right? If you can get some guest spots and you get links from other blogs that also have authority, that's great for you.
Mm-hmm. So Vanessa, let's say, I'm as a small business owner, I've done my keywords, I've put them in or had somebody help me put them in. I've put it in the page titles. I've made sure I had this technical thing that Dawn was talking about, this schema in place. At what point will I start to see results? Can I just watch by day? Is it going to go up, or can I ever hope to have a top spot on Google? Can you talk about the results piece?
That's a question that people always ask. How long will it take? Especially with a new site, people are worried that their site doesn't show up right away, and that's normal. Yeah. So one of the things you can do to help this along is by keeping your site updated. Now, most of the time, people aren't changing their homepage or about page text very often, which is why the idea of a blog or keeping their case studies or project portfolios updated is because the more you update your site, the more often the search engines will visit your site. And that's good for you. SEO is a long game. It has to be thought of that way. It's doing a one-time SEO refresh of your site can and does help, but it should be an ongoing thing, primarily because search engines just love sites that have updated content. It's one of their jobs, so to speak, to show the person who's searching the most recent results. They're not going to show a result from 10 years ago. They're going to show us a result from yesterday or last week. So fresh content is great. The more times the search engine visit you, that's called crawling, the more you tend to show up and higher up in the results. So that's a good thing. You can update your blog 4 times a week. And then if the search engine comes to your site and says, oh, that 4 things changed last week, I'm going to come back again. They're just going to come back more often, and that pushes you up.
I don't know that anyone wants to hear that SEO is a long game, but you have been in this business for a long time. So I think we have to trust you on that one. And I think it takes consistency, right? And not relying on it to be the only thing, right, that is helping to bring people to your website. It's a piece of the overall marketing puzzle.
It's hard to give someone a time frame because there's so many factors that go into SEO. There's so many pieces to the algorithms of what the search engines look for. It kind of depends on what your competition's doing. If you're putting keywords on your site, it's going to help, but it depends on how competitive those keywords are that you're trying to search for. So there's so many factors that go into it. It's just hard to give people a time frame.
Yeah. And one thing that we found that's helpful, especially if you're just starting your business, you're not going to be on page 1 immediately, even if somebody types the name of your company, right? And so one thing you can do is you can actually buy your own company's keyword, buy your own company's name in paid ads. So at least you show up at the top until your organic search results start to kick in. And I'll tell you, we did that with Jottful. When I first started Jottful, we just bought the name Jottful until eventually we started to show up on page 1, even though Jottful isn't a word that's used anywhere else. It's not a real word, right? It still took us a while to show up on page 1. So we paid for it in the meantime. Let's open it up to some questions. But the first one I thought we could ask here is, somebody says, I feel like I'm in a battle between SEO and creativity. And I think, Vanessa, this has got to be a big thing for you because you do a lot of copywriting, right? So you're really trying to be creative and write really compelling copy while also trying to make sure that you're baking in these keywords without overstuffing. How do you kind of balance that?
Well, it is sometimes difficult to figure out a way to make it sound natural, but that's something that a good SEO copywriter can usually do. One of the tricks is that search engines can't read punctuation. So sometimes you can work keywords in that way by just putting a comma in some place or a period in some place that makes it sound more natural.
So one question here is about a blog writer versus an SEO copywriter, and what is the difference, and how do you know?
Okay. Well, anybody can be a blog writer. Not everyone can be an SEO copywriter. You can blog about anything, and I encourage you to blog. If you are enthusiastic and passionate about whatever it is that you do, and you have a ton of information that you want to share with the world, I encourage you to blog. And just, don't worry about whether it's SEO rich and keyword optimized. Just blog, because that's going to help you position yourself as an authority, and it's going to build authority for your website either way. But if you are working with an SEO copywriter, they're going to be able to take those blog ideas and figure out what keywords make sense and how they can be used and where they can be used to best advantage. So, for instance, just to use this coffee roaster example that I've been talking about, you could, you could write a blog about anything, but you could say instead of just saying how to enjoy coffee, for instance, your blog title could be how to enjoy small batch hand roasted coffee. And then within your blog, you can talk about your small batch process and how it's different from the supermarket coffee that people are going to get. So you're creating information, you're sharing information, but you're using these keywords in a way that makes sense for that topic. And that's going to help you in the long run. An SEO copywriter will know how to do this better than someone who might not be a trained writer. Does that make sense?
I also find when making referrals to people, if people are an SEO writer, or they focus on that, they will say it, and it will actually be in their title or the way they describe themselves.
Yes,
and if people don't do that piece, rarely do I find that they do it. Just happenstance.
I would agree. Yes. If someone doesn't describe themselves as an SEO copywriter, they probably aren't.
Right.
Thank you so much, Vanessa, for joining us. This has been really fantastic.
Thank you. It was my pleasure to be here with you today.
Well, that's a wrap. If you enjoyed this episode of Marketing Made Easy, please subscribe to Jottful's YouTube channel. That's JOTTFUL. That way, you'll never miss an episode. We'll meet you on the next one.